gotta give it up to WWE, bro. Guys, this video is gonna be low edited, all that stuff. It's gonna be a straight rant. This has to be the funniest or one of the funniest SmackDown episodes, like, of all time. I could not stop laughing at how awful this episode was. Like, this was genuinely peak entertainment, peak comedy. I mean, you just can't, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, for the bad promos, right? The bad wrestling. I mean, the awful entrances. This crowd was dead all night outside of the first 20 minutes. I mean, it was just laughable. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down this show, and I'm going to go and review it, because I'm not going to lie. This episode was horrible. It was really, really bad, right? You know what I'm saying? Not the worst SmackDown ever, but it was a pretty bad episode. But because it was so bad, you're laughing at how bad it is. It's kind of like the Morbius movie, right? You laugh at it and you have fun with it because of how trash the movie is. It's one of those kind of situations, right? Or like one of the Venom movies, you know? But anyways, let's go ahead and start off with Jey Uso. Jey Uso, Mr. Royal Rumble winner, Oos. I'm a winner, Oos. I'm gonna beat you, Oos. Oos, Oos, Oos. You know what I'm saying? It's just me, Oos. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, Jey Uso basically has like a 15-minute entrance. And at this point, I'm already getting tired of this, right? Jey Uso comes out, though, in the crowd. This is why the crowds die, I'm telling you. The first 20 minutes, right, you're getting hyped for this whole 15-minute ensemble entrance that, yeah, it's pretty cool. You know, everything's happening with it. That's great. But the fact is that after you're done the entrance, you're drained out and you're tired. Just like Jey Uso was drained out and tired. By the time he puts the mic in his hand and is actually ready to say something, he's already out of breath. He's out of breath and he's... Jey Uso is so out of breath after yeeting for like 15 minutes that this dude sits down in the ring, and this dude's like waving his hand and pointing his thumb at himself because he can't even say the words of the song. It's just me, Oos. He's completely out of breath. He's clearly gassed. Then he finally starts speaking, and he's like, main event Jey Uso is now in your city. You know what I'm saying? And then Jey Uso proceeds to basically talk about how he won the Royal Rumble. He's here on SmackDown. He's got to make a choice on who he wants to fight, you know, yada, 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 etc., etc. And then after this happens, he brings out Cody Rhodes, and Cody Rhodes cuts a nothing promo again. At this point, you just have to sit back and appreciate how bad this dude is at promos, right? There's no point of even critiquing it anymore. You know, you just have to laugh at this guy. It's embarrassing. This is the WWE This is the WWE champion, and he comes out here and says the same stuff. I respect you, Jey. I'm proud of you. I love you. Do you feel me, sir? And then Cody Rhodes is basically talking about how he visited his doctor, and his doctor said he has fluid in his elbow, and we drank a couple libations together, Jey, if you don't remember. We had fun together. We libated together, and at the end of the day, if you want to face me, all of that fun will come to an end. And then Jey Uso basically says, you know what, Cody, I want to face you, right? I want to face you, Oos. But then shakes his hand, and then later in the night says he doesn't know who he wants to face. This promo segment was for absolutely nothing. And after this is done, Jacob Fatu comes out here, and I'm so tired of this guy at this point. All Jacob Fatu comes out and does is basically comes out and yells into the microphone, and everyone pretends like he's cutting some A+ promo, you know? Like, yeah, his delivery is solid, but solid delivery doesn't mean that your promo is elite. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's just absolutely ridiculous. Jacob Fatu basically says that Jey Uso, you know, if there's anyone who's going to bring the championship back to his bloodline, it definitely won't be Jey Uso. And then Jacob Fatu basically says he's going to take the belt from Cody, and then he super kicks Jey in the face, and then after that happens, you know, him and Tama Tonga first off said, I got everybody on there, yeah. You know, and then he says, shh, to the whole crowd. Jacob Fatu said all his promo or whatnot. They brawl for a little bit, all four of them brawl, and this sets up a tag match with Tama Tonga and Fatu versus Cody and Jey later in the night. Then we had Bianca versus Piper Niven. Nobody cares about this match. We can basically skip over this. Bianca Belair wins this match, but Piper Niven... Piper Niven's theme song is so garbage. It is awful. She comes out, right? It's like... Like, dude, her theme song sucks. This women's division is so garbage. Yeah, the potential is there for them to get better, but right now, it sucks. I mean, it just does. So, yeah, Bianca beat Piper Niven to qualify for the Elimination Chamber. Move on. DIY then comes out and wastes our time. The crowd's absolutely dead because nobody cares who DIY. Nobody knows who they are. Nobody cares what they have to say. And then they proceed to face Pretty Deadly in an impromptu match, which earns Pretty Deadly a tag team championship shot. And now that that's happening, DIY basically fought Pretty Deadly tonight to get them to qualify for that match, of course. And Pretty Deadly beat DIY in street clothes. No one cares about this. The Street Profits are absolute jobbers now, so that doesn't matter either. This was just a total waste of our time. DIY suck as champs. No one knows who they are, and no one knows who Pretty Deadly is. My brother was telling me as I was watching this, he was basically saying, do you remember when we used to see Kane versus Batista, right? Or Jeff Hardy versus like The Undertaker, you know what I'm saying? Or Rey Mysterio versus The Undertaker or something like that. Or Shawn Michaels versus literally anybody, you know what I'm saying? On a random episode of Raw or Smackdown back in the 2000s. And now we're watching Bianca Belair versus Piper Niven, followed by Pretty Deadly versus DIY, and then this gets followed later by Carmelo Hayes versus Tozawa, and then by Jay and Cody Rhodes versus Fatu and Tama Tonga. Do you see what I'm saying? The match quality is just so different. The main event of Uso and Cody versus Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga is embarrassing when the mid-card match used to be like freaking CM Punk versus like freaking Jeff Hardy was a mid-card match on SmackDown like 15 years ago. You know, Rey Mysterio versus like Triple H was a mid-card match on SmackDown 15 years ago. And now the main event match is Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes versus Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga. And that is why we're laughing at all this garbage. Then we basically get a segment with Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre is now a certified nice guy, as he calls himself, and he basically says it's time for him to be in a good mood. You know, now that he's moved away from Raw, he's officially a SmackDown member now of their roster, and he basically says that he's no longer in a toxic environment, so now he can officially be himself 100%. Then Jimmy Uso comes out, and Jimmy Uso basically brings up the fact that Drew McIntyre just keeps complaining and crying, which is absolutely true. Jimmy Uso basically says that Drew McIntyre is now, you know, acting like basically a mad ex-girlfriend, right? And the crowd pops for it, and he calls Drew McIntyre a loser, and that's pretty much that. Then Jimmy Uso proceeds to get in the ring, and he basically tells Drew McIntyre, he's like, look, you know, you don't know who you're in the ring with, right? Which obviously Jimmy Uso is an absolute jobber in his singles run, so I don't know why we're doing all this, but he ends up cutting an actually pretty solid promo. There was charisma, the crowd was into it, so he did his job and did a good job going against Drew on the mic. Drew then responds by saying, Jimmy, you know, pretty funny moment there. He's like, you know, I still can't differentiate you two, because if you said yeet earlier than your brother did, maybe you would be as over as he is, and maybe you'd be on the way to WrestleMania. And then Jimmy Uso's like, well, where's your WrestleMania ticket? And then, you know, that's a good response or whatnot, right? So they went kind of back and forth. LA Knight then comes out. If you didn't know, LA Knight and Drew McIntyre had a little behind-the-scenes issue during Royal Rumble, because LA Knight apparently missed his spot and was kind of trying to do too many moves, which kind of made Drew McIntyre's, get him getting removed from the Rumble, made it seem a little bit anticlimactic, and it pissed Drew off behind the scenes. And so because of that, Drew McIntyre was in a pretty bad mood, you know what I'm saying, in real life, of course. And then LA Knight comes out and basically says, you know, he cuts a promo on mental health, saying there's nothing wrong with crying, you know what I'm saying, to every man out there, there's nothing wrong with crying. However, it gets to a point, you know, and he brings up how Drew McIntyre has been crying every day and every show for the last like year. And then after LA Knight basically brings up that Drew just cries nonstop, you can tell they kind of have like true heat, like real heat between the two of them. And Drew and LA Knight, you know, they're kind of like eyeing each other up from a distance. LA Knight's got a completely straight face. Drew's kind of laughing a little bit, right? And then they get into the ring and the actual match starts. This is a pretty run-of-the-mill basic triple threat. Let's be real with ourselves. They did the basic spot where you have the superplex from the top, and then someone either power bombs or German suplexes from underneath. In this case, Drew McIntyre creatively kind of hung on the rope and then went up and did a German suplex. That happens, and then it's kind of creative finish. Drew pulled the ref out of the ring after Jimmy hit a mid-looking splash, and then Drew claymores LA Knight into hitting his BFT onto Jimmy Uso. He claymores LA Knight in the back of the head. The first bit of this match actually had some legitimate graps, you know what I'm saying? Like, this was like real grappling between between LA Knight and Drew McIntyre. Like, they clearly were a little bit upset with each other. It was pretty physical, and it was kind of a little tussle, a little brawl, you know what I'm saying? So that was a pretty interesting dynamic there. There's probably still going to be some real heat with them behind the scenes. Maybe they make it into a storyline, maybe they don't, who knows? But eventually, at the end of this match, like I said, Drew McIntyre wins and qualifies for the Elimination Chamber. So now we're going to have Drew McIntyre, CM Punk, John Cena, and likely Logan Paul and likely Seth Rollins after they win their matches. And then who knows who the sixth entrant will be. It'll probably be LA Knight, or, in a last chance match, or somebody else will fit in that sixth spot. So, there you have it. Then we have Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is basically cutting a promo in his car, talking about how Sami Zayn did the unforgivable, right? He protected Roman and helped Roman on Raw and Netflix's premiere when he had that tribal combat match with Solo Sikoa. He was there to help Roman and, save him. But for some reason, when KO needed help in a championship match, one of the biggest of his life, Sami was nowhere to be found. And quite frankly, Kevin Owens is 100% correct here. Sami Zayn was nowhere to be found to help his quote-unquote best friend, and it's unacceptable, right, in the storyline. It makes complete sense why KO would be upset. So KO's back to cutting car promos, and he's back to basically being pretty much irrelevant and nonsensical and pretty much useless on this show for probably the next month or so until Sami Zayn comes back. So, there you have that. We're going to get Sami Zayn versus KO part 15 billion, and quite frankly, it's getting ridiculous now, right? It really just is. These dudes do the same stuff. They'll do like a separate storyline with somebody completely different for like a year, and they'll be back and fighting each other again at the end of the year or at the beginning of the year. And then it'll be the same thing. Take a break for 8 months, then we're back fighting each other again. Take a break, then we're back. Take a break, then we're back. Take a break, then we're back. This stuff sucks. Now let's move on to the next thing, which is Carmelo Hayes versus Tozawa. And this is just absolutely egregious at this point. Carmelo Hayes, right? Carmelo Hayes, this is something that somebody brought up. I forget who it was, but I saw multiple videos on this throughout TikTok and on YouTube, and people were bringing up the great point. Braun Breaker is a 2-time Intercontinental Champion since he's come to the main roster for the last 8-9 months, right? 2 Intercontinental Championship reigns. He's barely had to wrestle on TV the last 4 months, right? Since he won the belt the first time around. He barely has had to wrestle really at all since then, you know what I mean? Barely defending the title on Raw, barely showing up on Raw to cut any promos, and basically barely showing up to do anything. You have Tiffany Stratton, who is another NXT call-up, and she's already the WWE Women's Champion, right? It's the equivalent of if Melo or Braun Breaker was WWE Champion in the men's division, right? And somehow, someway, Tiffany's got all that going for her. And now you have Carmelo Hayes, who has been relegated to losing to Damian Priest. He lost to Braun Strowman. He lost to Andrade 3 times. He got destroyed by LA Knight. And on top of that, Carmelo Hayes at this point has won no gold. So how is it possible that Shinsuke Nakamura can get the U.S. Championship and then fade away into the ocean of irrelevancy, right? And then all of a sudden, Carmelo Hayes is relegated to fighting Tozawa in a match that lasts longer than 30 seconds. This match was 10 minutes. It takes him 10 minutes to beat Tozawa, but the other NXT call-ups are WWE Champion and then Intercontinental Champion, and Carmelo Hayes can't even get the U.S. belt, but Shinsuke Nakamura is getting it and hasn't done anything with it? What? This is unacceptable. Do you understand what I'm saying? Carmelo Hayes has the talent. First off, Braun Breaker and Carmelo Hayes are 100% more talented than Tiffany Stratton, so that's not even in the discussion. Braun Breaker's a freak athlete in the ring, but he's barely showing up on TV and barely doing anything. So yes, I would say Carmelo Hayes is more consistent and arguably better than Braun Breaker is, because Carmelo Hayes, number one, right, he is also an amazing athlete. He has a great moveset. He cuts good promos. He has a better entrance than Braun Breaker by far, and on top of that, Carmelo Hayes is also better at playing his role than Braun Breaker is, and he's a more consistent wrestler in the ring. So I don't understand how Carmelo Hayes is relegated to being an undercard jobber who's losing all these matches, but Braun Breaker is a 2-time Intercontinental Champion already. How? You're telling me Braun Breaker is that much better than this dude? Tiffany Stratton's that much better than Carmelo Hayes? Really? You know? It's just, it doesn't make any sense, right? And it's getting absolutely egregious at this point. If Carmelo Hayes doesn't win the U.S. belt by Mania, I don't even know what to say at this point. And even if he does, why is it taking him a year to win a meaningless U.S. championship belt, but Braun Breaker got to win an IC belt in 4 months and then win it back in 2 months later, you know? And then you had Tiffany Stratton. She wins a WWE championship in 8 months, but Carmelo Hayes is wrestling undercard jobber matches and getting pinned left and right? What? This is his first singles pinfall win, I think, since October or September. There's a stat on it, you know? Where is the respect? I just don't understand it, man. This is really frustrating, bro, and it really makes those allegations, you know what I'm saying, the allegations of Triple H being potentially racist are actually starting to make sense, because now this looks awful, right? When you have Carmelo Hayes, who's as talented as he is, and he's relegated to being a jobber, while Sami Zayn gets to hold an IC belt. Gunther got to have a 2-year IC belt reign and get a world title reign, and he's been bad since he's got that world title, you know? And he gets that opportunity. You know, Braun Breaker gets to win 2 IC belts, and Carmelo Hayes can't beat Braun Strowman? He can't beat Damian Priest? He's getting pinned 3 times by Andrade? Are you out of your mind? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, this sounds ridiculous, but it's really what's happening. So, yeah, we got to do something and open up a dialogue about what's happening with Carmelo Hayes, because now it's just getting ridiculous. Then we move on to Charlotte Flair, who actually cuts a decent promo. She basically comes out and, you know, one thing she did do wrong is she kept on trying to force this heel persona, right? So she asked the crowd, she's like, yo, do you guys hate me, Memphis, or do you love me, Memphis? Memphis actually seemed like Charlotte was pretty over tonight, right? They were supporting her, they were cheering her, they were doing all that stuff. So, you know, there you have that. But overall, she tried to get fake heat. Then Tiffany Stratton comes out. Tiffany Stratton just sucks at her job, right? It really is as simple as that. Obviously, most of these wrestlers now are just getting over hype, you know what I'm saying? And if their entrance is over with the crowd and if they have a special chant. Other than that, wrestlers don't get over for being great anymore. They really don't, right? You know, you have a great wrestler like Carmelo Hayes, and he's relegated to being an undercard jobber, you know, getting mid-reactions when he goes out to the crowd, because people don't understand talent. They just go off of whatever everybody else is saying, and that's pretty much that. You know, there's no universe where Tiffany Stratton is even better, arguably, right? And this is arguably speaking. There's not a universe where she's legitimately better than, like, freaking, I don't even know, bro. Like literally, Lyra Valkyria and Tiffany Stratton are closer in talent than Carmelo Hayes and Tiffany Stratton are. You know what I'm saying? Comparatively speaking. You know, and Lyra Valkyria isn't good, but Lyra Valkyria is probably better in the ring than Tiffany, and then on the mic, they both suck. So what's the difference? You know, it really is just mind-boggling to me. Tiffany Stratton comes out there and she's like, everyone has always compared me to Charlotte Flair, and everyone has always compared me to this, and I'm this, and I'm this, but it's always going to be Tiffy time. I'm like, dude, you say the same thing every week. Shut up and get off the mic. You know, just get off the mic now at this point. Charlotte Flair then proceeds to give a great response, which I actually liked. She kind of gives an arrogant response of like, oh, are you talking to me? You know what I'm saying? Like, who are you talking to? You know, you need to get down on your knees and beg me to face you, right? Because champions are such jobbers now that people like Tiffany and Rhea have to beg people to come face them because they're such jobbers. So it's as simple as that, you know? And then Charlotte Flair basically owns her on the mic, cuts a decent promo. Nia Jax comes out and says nonsense. Nobody cares about this. But next week, there's going to be Nia Jax versus Tiffany for the WWE Women's Championship. No one cares. Then Alexa Bliss comes out to a mid-reaction. The crowd is absolute garbage tonight. Alexa Bliss deserves a much better pop, but she didn't get one, so it is what it is. This match is utterly forgettable. Alexa Bliss gets her toy stepped on or whatever, and then all of a sudden that causes her to lose it. She hits the Sister Abigail DDT looking thing that she does and gets the W. So now Alexa Bliss is now in the Elimination Chamber along with Bianca and Liv Morgan. So this is cool. Alexa Bliss is definitely going to help the women's division to an extent. So, you know, there you have that. But at the end of the day, you know, unless they're able to get more help in the different areas that they need, it isn't going to work out in the long run. But it was still really cool to see Alexa Bliss out here, man. So, you know, let's just see that. Let's just hope that they book her well in the future. She's probably going to rejoin the Wyatt Six and just be a permanent jobber, but hopefully they give her better aspirations than that because she's above the Wyatt Six. The Wyatt Six are garbage. The Wyatt sucks, as they should be called. And the Street Profits cut a meaningless video promo. I can't believe I'm saying this because I like Montez Ford and Dawkins, but I don't care about these guys right now. Until they win a match or win anything or win any gold, there's just nothing to speak of with these dudes. You know, they say the same thing. We're frustrated. We're this, we're that. Okay, prove it and win a match. Anyways, now let's get to the main event. Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes versus Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga. At this point, there's nothing to say about this. This is now they're in a situation that's similar to Nia Jax and Candice LeRae and Bayley, you know what I'm saying? Or Naomi versus Tiffany Stratton, or Naomi and Bayley versus Candice LeRae and Tiffany, or Naomi and Bayley versus Candice and Nia Jax. Like, it's the same stuff. Now it's just Fatu and Tama Tonga versus Jey Uso and someone else, or LA Knight and someone else, or Cody Rhodes and someone else. Like, it was Cody and Jimmy a few weeks ago, and now it's Cody and Jay. You know, it's the same thing. Right? These matches are for absolutely nothing, and nobody cares about them. And by the time the entrances are done and they've dragged out enough time, there's only 10 minutes left on the show. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like, who cares? You know, Cody Rhodes, yeah, they give you the illusion, right, that this dude's actually consistent. He's wrestling injured. He's doing all these things, which I do respect from Cody Rhodes. But the match lasted like 9 minutes, and he's in the match for like 4 or 5 of the 9 minutes. So I'm like, dude, are we really giving credit for wrestling for 4 minutes now as the WWE champion, the quote-unquote workhorse and captain who took the Cena schedule? I mean, he took the current Cena schedule because Cena ain't showing up and ain't doing nothing. But, you know what I'm saying? But still, you know? So pretty much Jay and Cody win this match. Cody Rhodes hits a crossroads on Tama Tonga and pins him. The only notable spot in this match was basically when Cody hit the super cutter on Jacob Fatu. That was a pretty cool spot. One of my favorite moves, or actually my favorite move from Cody. But then that's it. After Cody wins this match, though, Solo Sikoa officially returns and spikes him in the neck, and then that's pretty much it. He stands over him, and that's that. Solo Sikoa now is going to basically be a transitional character. He'll basically be a bridge to give Cody something to do for the next month or so, right, until they iron out who he's going to fight against, which is probably going to be John Cena. And they're going to iron this out and basically have Solo Sikoa be Cody's adversary for the next month, and eventually Jacob Fatu will probably turn on this dude very soon, and then we'll get Jacob Fatu versus Solo at Mania, and then Cody versus Cena, or Cody versus Cena versus Punk, or some type of collection with that. It's very simple. Jay's gonna fight Gunther. Solo Sikoa is just being used as Cody's adversary just for the next 3 to 4 weeks to the chamber, so he can gloss over that and give him something to do for the next month. If not, he has nothing to do, right? So you have to have some, mid-card heel come in and just play that role, and that's the role that Solo Sikoa is going to be playing, and that is pretty much that. This episode had a ton of funny moments. I was laughing throughout Jay's entire promo. I was laughing throughout his entrance. I was laughing at Cody Rhodes' garbage promo. Piper and Evans' awful entrance. DIY and Pretty Deadly are just garbage. You know what I'm saying? It is simple as that. Carmelo Hayes versus Tozawa is just sad at this point. Nia Jax is bad on the mic. You know what I'm saying? And then Cody Rhodes and Jay versus Fatu and Tama Tonga was a waste of time. And then there was some segment with Braun Strowman and Damian Priest earlier where Braun Strowman was like mumbling. He was like, "You're in the ring with a monster. You're in the ring with a..." Like, dude, just stop. This episode of Smackdown was absolutely hilariously awful, but it made me laugh and it entertained me, so I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10, right? The episode, objectively speaking, is like a 2 out of 10, but because I laughed so much during this, I'm going to give it a 7, actually. I'll bump it up, so there you have it. Let me know your thoughts on Smackdown in the comment section below, and as always, I thank you guys for watching and have a phenomenal day. Peace out. One love.